Hey guys, it's Will.
And I'm Mike.
It's Terrible Infant.
Yay.
It's a special ranking. It's Halloween time,
Yes.
and we were trying to think of what can we do for Halloween that would be really fun. And actually, Mike suggested let's rank all of John Carpenter's 1980s films. So
80s only.
yeah, so this is only his 80s. We only put out 8 movies in the 1980s, and let's just say what they are so people know what we're ranking. The Fog, Escape from New York, The Thing, Starman, Christine, They Live, Prince of Darkness. I'm not in order anymore.
In Big Trouble.
And Big Trouble in Little China.
That's the 8.
Yeah, so those are the 8 movies that he put out in the 80s. That's what we will be ranking. Mike is like a huge John Carpenter
Love me some John
fan.
Carpenter. Well, especially in the 80s because...
Well, that's like vintage John Carpenter.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, other than Halloween and Assault on Precinct 13, which are the 70s, like, I feel like the 80s is what people really know him for.
80s. Oh, yeah.
So, and Mike also really likes like synthwave music, which obviously is based on.
Yeah.
And he got me into synthwave. So we went and saw Perturbator together, and
Perturbator was awesome.
I've seen Ghost a couple times.
Go see them if they're in your area, in your town.
Yeah, seriously. So this is going to be really fun for us, and we're just going to hop right in. You want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. I'll start with number 8. I have Starman.
Okay.
Doesn't really feel like a John Carpenter type movie.
Did he? I feel like he didn't write it. Did he not write it?
I can't remember.
Because I feel like there are very few movies that he did not write and direct, and I think that's one of them.
Yeah, it's the least memorable for me. I watched it like 20 years ago. I barely remember it.
Jeff Bridges is in it.
Yeah,
right?
he's Starman.
I mean, so I'll tell you that it's my number 8 is the same as Starman, and it's very similar to like that movie. So I grew up when I was like a young kid. I lived outside of Philadelphia, and there was this channel called Prism that was like a Philadelphia area HBO basically. Mm-hmm. And our next door neighbor was like one of the like supers in our apartment complex, and so he got us Prism for free. He like hooked it up in our attic. So that movie was on Prism all the time, Starman. So I watched it as a kid.
It's like a kids movie, right?
But I haven't seen it in probably like 25 years, maybe even 30 years.
Yeah.
And excuse me.
Oh Lord.
I honestly like it's. Like, I looked up pictures of it before we shot this, because I'm like, have I seen that movie? And I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen that movie. I've seen that movie several times. But I really just don't remember it that well. And, like, I don't remember it having the feel of John Carpenter's
I don't think it's going to be a big surprise for most people.
So,
most people will probably agree with that.
Yeah.
Here's where I think we're going to start to differ. Number 7 for me.
No.
Is Prince of Darkness.
No, you didn't put it that low.
I put it that low.
You didn't.
I did it. I watched it maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago. And
it's not just me who's going to be upset about that.
I think it's just going to be you.
No, people like that movie.
They like it, but they don't love it. So I will preface this by saying every movie at 7 and up are good movies. Like John Carpenter in the 80s was a beast. He was making some really good movies. To me, Prince of Darkness is number 7 because it just felt really slow. I'm not all into the whole...
But all his movies are slow. That's the point. They're not slow. They're deliberately paced.
It just, I don't know. I just couldn't get into it.
He hates Satan.
I didn't like the whole.
He doesn't want to tell you it, but he hates Satan.
Subplot.
It's not a subplot. It's the whole movie.
And I didn't like it, and the characters weren't really memorable. Just wasn't for me.
It's just tragic.
He just loved it, so it's probably gonna be higher up on his list.
My number 7 is Christine.
Let me get my little drink.
Which I think is a movie that not a lot of people love, right?
It's hit and miss.
It's The Car, right? It's a Stephen King story, isn't it? So someone on our Instagram commented that The Car at the end of the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie is Christine. It's the same car. And I don't know if that's true, because I haven't seen Christine. Again, this is another movie that, like, I saw when I was maybe, like, 10 or 11 on, like, VHS. And I remember it, basically, but it didn't leave a big impression on me. And I saw Halloween around the same time, and I couldn't get that movie out of my head.
Yeah.
And so, to me, even though it feels a little bit disingenuous to rank a movie that I saw once, like 20 years ago, well, 25 years ago,
we did it for Starman.
At the same time, like, with Halloween, like, I remember scenes from that movie from when I saw it when I was, like, 9 or whatever.
Still do, yeah.
So...
Yeah. Number 6 for me is The Fog.
Okay.
Not a bad movie by any means. Actually, quite enjoyable. You know, it's such a simple movie. You know, the fog comes in and there's creatures that come out of it to kill them, and then you have to kind of get the backstory of like why they're attacking this town, and you find out it's like
that
like
guy's
a leper
monologue.
colony. Yeah, the funny story is like it was too short. The film was too short for theaters, so they told John Carpenter to make it longer. So he added like a 5-minute opening of some old guy telling kids a tale.
He tells them a story,
and then it cuts to the
movie.
Genius,
it's
though, smart.
Too.
No,
it's
I agree.
genius.
It's smart, but
he's
it's
like,
funny.
okay, how do I do this?
How do I do it? So I mean, it has Jamie Lee Curtis in it. It has his ex-wife. I can't remember her name. I always get it mixed up. It's a French name. It's like Barbeau or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's a good movie. It's not, there's so many good John Carpenter movies, so you have to rank them. So to me, that's the
thing too. It's like for me, other than 8 and 7.
It's hard.
They're all good movies.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. We watched it together. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'd watch it again.
I liked it a
have
lot.
no problems with
you'll
it.
see it's higher up
I
my
just
list,
think some of his other movies, to me, have something better. Either better music, better scenes, better tension, better whatever.
For me, number 6 is Big Trouble in Little China, which might upset some people. I know people really love this movie.
It's very hit and miss, I think.
I don't have a problem with this movie. I think it's really silly. I think it's really fun. I see him almost like parodying really bad martial arts movies, and I like martial arts movies, so I think that's really fun. Like that he's obviously like somehow interested in that culture. Like if you look at John Carpenter in the 80s, it's almost like he is like this self-aware filter for like he's looking at everything that's happening in movies and making his versions of it. But at the same time, he's also leading trends, right? Because Halloween was such a huge influence,
you
and
got
like
all that stuff going.
So many of his movies were huge influences. But he's also very clearly very aware of everything that's happening in cinema, even with like grindhouse movies, trash movies, whatever. And that's becoming part of what he's doing. So it's like a really funny movie. Kurt Russell is really funny. Like it's ridiculous. It's over the top. It's enjoyable. But what I really like about John Carpenter is like the synth music and the dread and the violence and the creepiness, and like that's not in this movie at all.
No.
And so I don't want to rank it higher because it doesn't have the things I really love.
So number 5 for me is Big Trouble in Little China. Some of the same reasons Will said. It feels to me like, again, Starman and this don't really feel like John Carpenter type movies. To me, this like almost falls in because I saw it when I was young, and so it holds a special place in my heart, like something like The Goonies. Like it's a fun kind of adventure, kind of family-friendly film that you'd like get together with like friends and watch like on a holiday or Christmas or whatever. And it's like a fun movie you can just have on and not really pay attention to.
Or like Human Centipede.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Kurt Russell's obviously good in it. But it's, it's right in the middle.
He's ridiculous too, Kurt Russell in this movie. That was 5, right? So my number 5, trigger warning, They Live. It was really, really hard for me to pick between 5 and 4 on my list, and I almost just did a tie and didn't rank them, but I felt like I had to.
You had to.
I really like They Live. The fight scene between Keith David and Roddy Piper, and one of the best lines in the history of cinema is, "I came here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum." I really like this movie, and like the fact that there's like spoiler alert, I guess if you haven't seen this movie, but there's like these aliens and they're like operating out of like, and because what They Live is really clever because it takes kind of like almost like the heart of a movie like Escape from New York, because it's like urban dystopia, poverty, homelessness, drugs, like all these things that were happening in the 80s. But then instead of it being like a serious movie or a sleazy movie or like a murder movie, there's like freaking aliens and like awesome. Ridiculous comedy, and like it's really I put this movie really low on my list and I'm really hyping it. Well, I'll tell you why when I get to my next pick. I'll tell you there's only one reason that I put the other movie above this one.
I hope they just flame you. So number 4 for me is Christine.
I'm getting too excited. I need my drink.
Oh boy. So Christine to me is like Will said, it's based
Wait, hold on. It's that high on your list?
Yeah, it's a good movie.
No.
Well, you saw it like 20 years ago. You don't even remember. Making up stories about it being the car from Nightmare on Elm Street.
No, somebody actually said that on Instagram.
It's just some rando troll.
I don't know. It's an interesting concept.
Whatever. The music in Christine is really good, and like the whole idea of a car being possessed and like going out and killing people is like,
but it's totally stupid.
Yeah, but the music's great, and like the ambience, it's all dark, it's at night, and when that car's coming, it's like everything's dark except the lights are bright and shit, and it's like coming for you. And it's pretty scary.
Okay, well hold on.
Yeah.
Here's an idea.
Yeah.
get in the water. Go find a lake.
He'll go in
Car
there.
Can't get you.
There ain't no water around there. That'd be too simple of a plot device.
They live in the desert?
That'd be too easy of a plot device to escape. Of course they're in the they're somewhere where there's no water. The car waits till they're done swimming and they're like walking back on some rocks.
No, but if you know the car is coming.
They don't know the car's coming. It just comes out of nowhere. That's why they call it Christine.
That's why they call it Christine. That makes no sense.
Doesn't have to make sense. It's a car that's running people down.
No, I'm saying what you said makes no sense. Well, how did them calling it Christine has to do with the fact that it comes out of nowhere?
It's just coming out of nowhere.
Just a belligerent hog.
It's a fun movie. The score is amazing. You should give it a rewatch.
His music is amazing.
His music's amazing.
Yeah, I actually listened to the. I don't know if it's on Spotify or Apple Music or something. There's like the John Carpenter anthology that has like all his themes and stuff.
Awesome.
I've been listening to that a lot recently.
So that's my number 4.
For me, 4 is The Fog. And the only reason, I'll tell you, the only reason I picked this above They Live is the ambiance. I love the ambiance of this movie. This movie really, because when we watched this, I think either you or Jack pointed out the fact that it's not really a horror movie in the traditional sense. Like, it's spooky and it's creepy. It's not really that violent. Like, it's not that threatening. But to me, it feels like a Hammer movie. Or, again, like Universal Monsters, and I love those movies, like Wolfman with all the fog and stuff like that. And it just creates, like, such an awesome atmosphere. It has great music, again. And it has the historical mystery, which I really like. It is fun. I really like movies with historical mysteries. And so, again, that and They Live, to me, were, like, basically tied. And just for that reason, I picked The Fog.
All right, fair enough. So, what were we, 3?
Yeah, we should be on 3 now,
Right. So, some flame coming my way for number 3, probably. Number 3, I have Escape from New York.
Some flame coming my way. When did you start saying this? I've never heard you say that before. I just made it
up on the spot. So, number 3, I have Escape from New York.
Okay.
I've seen that movie.
Well, that's a respectable position.
Yeah, I've seen that movie multiple times. I really like it. Snake Plissken is like an awesome anti-hero. So the name's cool. His intro's cool. The music around him's cool. The Pimpmobile? The Pimpmobile with the chandelier lights. The whole the setting is just it's just really interesting. Like that they like blocked off New York and it's like a prison where people run wild and it's like it's just amazing. It's actually really I can't read it. I can't see very well. So what else can I say? Like it's a great movie. It kind of got Kurt Russell got him going, right? It's like one of his first films, probably.
I thought Kurt Russell's whole thing was like he was on the cusp of being a big star for a long time because he auditioned for Han Solo, like famously, right? And like a lot of other stuff like that, and he kept losing parts. And then he was in a John Carpenter movie about Elvis. That came out in the late 70s, right? And so that, and then he was in Escape from New York, and then The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, and all that.
So Escape from New York is great. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It did spawn a sequel in the 97, I think, Escape from LA, which is pretty trashy and not nearly as good as Escape from LA.
The surfing scene?
But there's some scenes in it that are so ridiculous you have to see it.
I have to say, too, if I don't know if I've talked about this on our YouTube channel before. We do a podcast very occasionally. We're doing a lot for a while, and then it just became kind of difficult to produce, but we still put them out every now and again. I've talked about this on our podcast, but I really love Pam Grier. And Pam Grier is in Escape from LA.
Yeah.
And I saw Escape from LA when I was in middle school, when it first came out at a friend's house. Like we rented it from the video store, and I hadn't seen it in probably 20 years. And then we watched it, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's Pam Grier!" And the flying thing at the end,
throws the basketball.
To me, that movie is to Escape from New York, like what Army of Darkness is to Evil Dead.
Yeah, it's a complete joke. Escape from New York is pretty serious in tone. It's pretty dark.
It's really gritty and sleazy.
Lee Van Cleef is in it.
Yeah,
and he's
from
awesome. And he's
Ugly,
cool because
right?
he's
is he in that one, or is
he in
Once Upon a Time in America?
He's in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and For a Few Dollars More.
Right. What's the other one? Once Upon a Time in the West. What's the other really long one?
Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah. Okay.
Once Upon a Time in America is really long movie.
That's the De Niro one. Yeah.
So and he's a good bad guy because like he's clearly against Snake Plissken, but he's not like evil, right? Like he's not just like some evil monger trying to kill everything. Like he has a reason for doing the things he's doing. He's just like against the guy we're rooting for.
Yeah.
So that's why I have it number 3. What do you have for 3?
Speaking of trigger warnings.
Oh, I know what you're gonna put. You're gonna get flamed so bad.
The Thing.
Oh my god.
The Thing.
You can just discount this whole list now.
The top 3 was difficult for me, and I'll talk about why when I get to my number 1, actually, and I'll kind of explain.
Oh, you're such a hog. I know what your first 2 are. Just terrible.
But, I mean, there's nothing that like The Thing is a classic movie, right? Like there was a point at which The Thing was a cult classic movie, but I don't even think that's true anymore. I think it's just considered a classic like flat out. It's one of the best '80s movies. It's one of the best horror movies. The atmosphere is incredible, just from the start. Like the shots, the helicopter shots coming across that ice, and the music, and the original Thing. Is it Howard Hawks who did it?
Howard Hughes.
No, that was Howard Hawks.
Could be.
Is it Howard Hughes?
I don't know.
I saw that movie when I was like maybe 6 or 7, and that was like that's like the first memory I have of a movie scaring the crap out of me. So then seeing like the '80s one and really enjoying that too. There's been like a continuity in my life of like this story kind of. I'm not going to say anything bad about this movie. I can't say anything bad about this movie. When I get to my numbers 2 and 1, I can explain why I picked them above it. But
just shameful.
I didn't see this movie until I was probably like 30, I think, because I think it came out the year before I was born.
It came out in '82.
Yeah, so I was born in '83. So it was one of those movies that like was more of like an underground cult classic when I was a kid watching a lot of movies, and then I didn't watch a lot of horror movies when I was in high school and stuff like that, so I never kind of went back to it, and it's just like one of those movies that I always meant to watch and never did.
Right.
And I feel like maybe if I had seen it when I was younger, it would be at the top of my list. But there's nothing bad to say about it. He's infuriated.
I want to break this table.
He's infuriated.
Wow. I feel about your Carpenter list what you felt about my Friday the 13th list.
No, there's no way. It's not. I put it at number 3. It wasn't like I put it at number 7.
Terrible. Number 2 for me, I have They Live. I really like They Live. I used to be a huge wrestling fan as well, so it was really fun seeing Roddy Piper in it.
Tell them about your backyard experiment.
Yeah, I jumped through a burning table once.
You have to find that video.
I gotta find it. I have it somewhere on video, and we can put it up. I wanted to be like, the project was a Spanish project about what we wanted to be when we grow up, so I was like, I want to be a professional wrestler. So are you speaking in
Spanish in this video?
Yeah, I talk in Spanish, and it's horrible Spanish because I didn't know anything. And I'm like, yo quiero wrestler or something like that. And I was trying to be like Mankind, because this was late 90s, and this was when Mankind did the Hell in a Cell.
This is like, but it was in your backyard in Indiana.
Yeah,
right?
This was when.
So it's like a suburban backyard in Indiana, and you're jumping through a flaming table. It wasn't Spanish.
It was super ghetto too, because I didn't have a table I could break. Right. So what we did is we took 2 log stumps and we put a board of plywood across them, and then I threw a bunch of twigs and like leaves on it.
Why?
And put lighter fluid on it and set on fire.
Yeah.
And then I climbed a ladder and I jumped off.
Oh my God! What season was it?
Season.
Like, were you wearing like cold Midwestern
I had
winter?
Sweatpants. I had sweatpants and like the sock, because I was trying to do Mr. Socko like Mankind, because this was when he did Hell in a Cell and he dived off it.
This is better than the list. This story.
So that's that story, and then we did other stuff where we were doing wrestling moves, but I was dressed as a woman for some reason, and it started with me doing the thing from what's the movie with Sharon Stone and
Basic Instinct.
Yeah, where she crosses her legs. That's how the Spanish video starts. This is in Spanish too, and then for some reason,
why is it Spanish?
I don't know. And then it was me and 2 other guys, and we did like wrestling moves on each other, and then we all hurt ourselves.
So I had to tell you,
amazing.
The thing that's so funny to me about Mike speaking Spanish is that Mike is Russian.
Yeah,
and I hear him speaking Russian with his parents, and it's really hard for me to think about him speaking in Spanish because they're so different.
I know
it's not that it's just those languages are so different.
But anyway, back to They Live. Because of that, it was really fun for me to see Roddy Piper in it. The music was really fun in it. The lines you already mentioned. That freaking like 7 or 8 minute fight scene that just like. It's like these 2 dudes just beating the shit out of each other, and it's like you figure one of them would be like, all right, that's enough. Let's just call it a day. And
wasn't the story behind that John Carpenter asked them to choreograph it himself, and he thought they were going to do like a 2-minute fight, and he felt bad cutting it because they just kept going so much effort into it.
It just kept going and going and going and going. But and all the whole like he puts the sunglasses on, he sees the aliens.
That's so classic.
And the music and like the setting.
Now I feel bad for putting it so low. Now you've sold it so well.
We need to rewatch it.
We watched it like a year or 2 ago.
I know, but we need to rewatch it again. All right. That's my number 2.
My number 2, I don't even need to look at my list because there's only 2 left, is Escape from New York.
Oh my God.
What? That movie's awesome. Come on.
terrible. I know what your number one is.
I really love like sleaze and like gritty, like I really liked Maniac.
Maniac's
and
awesome.
like stuff that kind of looks at that. Like, I mean, again, as I said earlier, I grew up outside of Philly, right? And I grew up on the New Jersey side of the river, so Camden is right there. So if you think about the 1980s, Camden, Philadelphia, like we would go to New York City too. Like those environments and like urban blight and like the poverty and the crime and the drugs and like obviously I wasn't like living in poverty and crime and drugs, but like you're witnessing it like on a regular basis. And then when you see stuff like that in the media, it just gets so ingrained in you that it becomes like a part of your childhood almost, right? And like, so when I watch Escape from New York, I really like recall that vision of the American city that was so prevalent like in the Reagan years and when like, you know, say no to drugs and everyone was so afraid of like, you know, crack and everything. And but I mean, as a movie, it's great too because it's like you have those people who live underground, right? And they're almost like zombies.
It's like little chuds coming from the underground to get you.
There's the thing where he fights that guy.
That ogre-looking dude, yeah.
It's just like such a well-conceived. And isn't there a scene where he goes like way down into the basement of like this movie theater, and there's like all these creeps down there.
Probably.
There's like flashlights shining around, and like is Ernest Borgnine in this movie too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he's the cabbie.
But it's just like it's so well imagined, and the world is so deep and huge. And again, like I said, like the feeling of like the 80s and that sense of like urban environments. I came really close to putting this at number one.
Mm-hmm.
Like really close.
It would have been more respectful.
And it's almost like a tie for me. But
would have been more respectful.
But I just think it's a great movie.
So, number one, it's probably easy to guess for me. It's The Thing. If you've seen, if you follow us and watch some of our other episodes, we did a first watch of The Thing, and we talked about The Thing a lot. And you know it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Probably one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time, regardless of genre. It's probably
you got the poster, right?
Got a poster. It's probably my favorite horror movie of all time. The music in it is amazing. It is actually Ennio Morricone, who's one of my favorite composers.
And then, isn't it in The Hateful Eight? Don't they reuse one of the themes?
I think they use some of the unused stuff. But I think I read that when it came out, the music was like panned. Like the critics didn't like it. They thought it was like generic and cheap and not very good. And I'm like, I think he knows a little better than some like random.
Well, I mean,
critic
but that's
in the
so
theater.
Often the case of like critics hate something and then you go back and you're like, this movie's amazing. And you're like, what are these people thinking?
Who knows? But like to me, the thing that sets the thing apart for me is the setting and the sense of dread it invokes because they are trapped in Antarctica. They can't get out. No one's coming to help them. There's this thing that can be anybody. They're super paranoid. You never really know who the thing is.
There's the computer scene. I mean, that's like the genius conceit of that movie, right? Is that you don't know who it is.
You don't know who it is.
There's no way to tell.
There's no way to tell. There's millions of little like theories about who's the thing at the end, who's the thing here, was this person the thing?
Like fan theories, right?
Yeah, and the cast.
Wilford Brimley's in it, right?
Wilford Brimley's in it. Kurt Russell's in it. Keith David's in it. It's a great cast.
It's an awesome cast.
It's
who are the other? It's Keith David, Wilford Brimley, Kurt Russell. Who else is in it? There's a comedian in it, right?
He follows us. He followed one of our posts, TK Winters. I want to say. God, I can't remember the names. Because
there's a lot of really
I'm bad
good
with
actors
names.
in
I
it.
barely remember his name.
You can't remember anything.
I know.
It's not just
I have
names.
bad memory. But
it's probably because you jumped off a ladder into a flaming table.
I've seen that movie at least 10 to 15 times now. It's still good.
We've watched it twice, haven't we?
It holds up. It holds up really well. This is like when they were doing they spent a lot of money on the practical effects of this, and I read the guy who did all the effects worked like 6 days a week for like 80, 90, 100 hours a week for like a year straight, and after the movie he had to check in for exhaustion. And
well, you would if you worked that much, yeah.
But I mean, looking back, it holds up. It looks really good. It's a really nasty movie. It's really gory. It's really disgusting in parts.
The scene where they do the defibrillator. Yeah.
But then there's other scenes that are really smart and really well put together, and the people kind of act like people would. Like no one's like there's not really any like superhero type characters in it. You know, it's. If there was a thing and you were in Antarctica, it's pretty believable that that's what would happen.
Yeah.
So that's why it's number one.
It's too bad Superman didn't come at the end.
Well, I mean, Superman would just pick up Antarctica, fly to the sun,
or melt it. Yeah.
Or melt it with his
eye
breath,
lasers. Yeah.
Or eat the thing.
Well, so my number one, he's so mad right now.
It's a fine movie.
Prince of Darkness.
It's not number one. It's not Carpenter's best.
So I just saw this movie like a week ago in anticipation of us doing this list because you watched it not that long ago and I wasn't able to come for some reason. And I didn't anticipate loving it this much, and I did. There's so many things about this movie that I love. I think the ambiance, again, when we talk about it, there's a lot with John Carpenter is incredible.
That's his whole thing.
So I read this thing where he said that John Carpenter made this movie specifically because he got really fed up with what horror movies had become in the 80s and how they all just had the same themes, the same ideas, and he was interested in looking at like cutting edge science, theoretical physics, like quantum physics and stuff like that, and religion, and seeing if there's some way where you can make a movie that is thematically about how these seemingly opposed concepts of religion and kind of like theoretical abstract science can be describing the same phenomenon. And what does that mean, and how can you look at that like that? And I thought that was really, really interesting. Especially coming, and I should also add that obviously, and again with Escape from New York and talking about personal context and what movies mean to you, my family is Catholic, and so like the Catholic elements of this movie with like the priest and the like kind of like the history of Catholicism and how they bury things that they don't want people to know about, and like all these deep mysteries that might be hidden somewhere in the Vatican and stuff like that. And then also, and spoiler alert, the idea that because the central premise basically once it's revealed is that they misinterpreted or someone at some point misinterpreted what God is supposed to be, right? And it's not that humans are a manifestation of a great good thing, but that the thing that the commonality is evil, and that our God is actually an anti-God in the same way that antimatter relates to matter and stuff like that. And so it's like kind of Satan, but it's actually what the premise is like, what if God were the evil one rather than Satan? He's furious about it. But I think that's really interesting because that's like completely flipping a 2,000-year-old idea on its head, and no one has ever conceived of doing that before. Because every single thing that you see that looks at that idea looks at the traditional concept of like God and Satan, good and evil. It's never like, what if there was one ancient being and it is evil?
Yeah.
I just loved it, and like it's not scary. It's just like creepy and gross, and like I thought the mystery was really interesting. I don't know. I just loved this movie. So there you go. There's our John Carpenter list. So let us know what your favorite John Carpenter movies are. Give us your list in the comments. If we get enough, better? Yeah, I mean obviously it's mine, but
no. I can guarantee you that Prince of Darkness #1 is not going to be...
People do like that movie,
but it's not going to be their favorite John Carpenter movie.
You're underestimating how much people like
You're overestimating.
No, there's a middle ground here.
No.
But...
unacceptable.
Just a wild belligerent
I'm just going to say mine wins.
But you're always... Here's the thing. You're always saying that most people are stupid, but then you're saying that most people are going to like your list more, which means that my list is better.
Yeah, but you're part of more
stupid people are liking your list. That doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't have to make sense.
Just a wild, belligerent hog. Just does whatever he wants whenever he wants.
That's how you got to do it. That's how you got to live life.
Yeah, so let us know what your lists are, and then we can do a tally. We can count up what everyone's favorite John Carpenters are, and we can post the definitive list of John Carpenter's 1980 films. My name is Will.
And I'm Mike.
This has been a Terrible Infant production, and we will see you next time.
See ya.